If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars.
The room went silent before the video even started. That alone should have been the warning. In a lecture hall carved from obsidian alloy and glowing with alien sigils, 300 non-human students sat perfectly still, claws folded, tendrils tucked, compound eyes unblinking. This wasn't fear, this was anticipation. Professor Zelvar let the silence stretch just long enough to make it uncomfortable. Today, the instructor said, voice clicking like shifting plates of stone, you will witness a confirmed Class 7 apex predator. The lights dimmed. A massive hologram snapped to life, filling the hall with crimson-tinted motion. Dense jungle, heavy fog, sensors screaming at the edges of the display. Something huge moved just beyond the trees, branches snapping like twigs. A ripple of unease passed through the students. This species wasn't prey. It wasn't even a rival. It was extinction on 4 limbs. The footage cut closer, muscles like coiled cables, eyes forward-facing, teeth designed not just to kill, but to hold. The predator struck without warning, erasing a native megafauna in less than 3 seconds. Gasps echoed. One student recoiled so hard their chair skidded backward. Professor Zelvar paused the footage at the moment of impact. Observe, he said calmly, the efficiency. No hesitation, no wasted motion. This creature evolved on a world where survival demanded dominance. A new label appeared beside the frozen image. Urgent World, Earth. A low murmur spread across the hall. Several students turned, slowly, toward the lone human seated halfway up the tiered rows. Ethan Cole didn't flinch. He was smaller than almost everyone else in the room. No claws, no armor plating, just a soft-skinned biped in a standard-issue academy jacket, legs crossed like he was watching a documentary at home. The professor continued, Earth is classified as a death world. Its apex species shaped entire ecosystems through fear alone. The footage resumed. Another kill, faster this time. A mandible-clacking alien whispered, How did you survive that place? Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he raised his hand. The gesture was small, polite, almost hesitant. Professor Zelvar stopped mid-sentence. Yes, the instructor asked, clearly annoyed. Ethan stood, cleared his throat. He said, eyes still on the predator frozen in mid-lunge. Sir, that's not the apex predator. The room froze harder than the hologram. Professor Zelvar's crest flared. Explain. Ethan swallowed once. Because, he said quietly, that thing? A slow breath. That's not what we're afraid of. The lights flickered, and for the first time since the lecture began, the predators in the room realized the prey was about to speak.
The silence after Ethan's words wasn't awkward. It was dangerous. Several students shifted instinctively, claws scraping stone, sensory fronds lifting as if tasting the air for threat. Challenging an instructor was rare. Challenging the premise of a Death World lecture? Almost unheard of. Professor Zelvar studied the human with a gaze that had broken stronger beings than Ethan. You claim, the professor said slowly, that the organism displayed is not Earth's apex predator. Yes, sir, Ethan replied, calm, respectful, terrifyingly certain. A hiss of disbelief rippled through the hall. The data is verified, Zelvar continued. This creature has no natural predators. It dominates its biome absolutely. Ethan nodded. That's true. Then he added, until we show up. That did it. Laughter burst from one corner of the room, sharp, clicking, mocking. You? A reptilian student scoffed. Your species lacks natural weapons? No venom? No exoskeleton? Barely functional claws?
Ethan glanced at them, not angry, not defensive, just curious. "Professor," Ethan said, turning back, "may I ask a question?" Zelvar's crest pulsed. "Proceed." The human gestured to the frozen image. "How many confirmed kills does this predator have against humans?" A pause. Zelvar flicked through the data stream. "Statistically insignificant. Humans avoid its territory." Ethan smiled faintly. "No, we don't." The professor stiffened. "Explain." Ethan inhaled, then spoke slowly, as if choosing each word for maximum impact. "We tracked it, studied it, learned its habits. Then we built tools specifically to counter it." A new murmur spread, uneasy now. "We didn't outrun it, didn't outfight it. We outthought it." The reptilian student sneered. "You expect us to believe your species hunts that?" Ethan met their gaze. "No," he said softly. "I expect you to believe we farm it." That word landed like a seismic charge. Professor Zelvar snapped the hologram off. The sudden darkness felt oppressive. "You will support this claim with evidence," the instructor said sharply. Ethan nodded. "Of course." He tapped his wrist console. The room lights reignited, this time revealing a new feed. Not shaky sensor footage, not distant observation. This was first person, a human breathing steadily, controlled, calm. The apex predator burst from the trees and fell instantly, a projectile punching through its skull with surgical precision. No roar, no struggle, just silence. A timestamp flashed. Engagement time, 0.8 seconds. Gasps turned into stunned horror. "That," Ethan said quietly, "is why it's not the apex predator." He looked around the room. Because apex predators don't get hunted for sport, or food, or population control. The professor's voice came out strained. "Then what is Earth's apex predator?" Ethan's eyes reflected the frozen frame of the kill. "We are." And somewhere deep in the Academy's archives, a threat classification quietly began to update itself. The Academy's threat matrix recalculated in silence. No alarms, no sirens, just numbers shifting, slowly at first, then accelerating as new probabilities stacked atop old assumptions. Professor Zelvar felt it before he saw it. The room had changed. Where there had been curiosity, there was now unease. Where there had been confidence, there was something closer to caution. Several students leaned away from Ethan as if physical distance might restore the balance they'd just lost. Zelvar straightened. "Your species," he said carefully, "is physically inferior to nearly every known sapient predator. You lack natural armor. You lack biological weaponry. By evolutionary standards, you should not exist." Ethan didn't argue. He nodded. "That's what we thought too." A few students blinked in confusion. "Back on Earth," Ethan continued, "we weren't the strongest, or the fastest, or the scariest. We were lunch." The professor folded his limbs. "Then how did you survive long enough to dominate?" Ethan tapped the console again. The next hologram showed an ancient human, barely clothed, clutching a crude stone tool. Across from them stood something massive, fangs, claws, hunger. "We noticed something early," Ethan said. "Predators rely on instinct, patterns, predictability." The ancient human stepped forward. The beast hesitated. "And we realized," Ethan went on, "if you can break the pattern." The human hurled the stone, not at the creature, but at the ground beside it. Dust erupted. The predator flinched. The kill came seconds later. A student whispered, "Deception." "Yes," Ethan said, hearing them anyway, "and memory, and planning." The footage advanced. Fire,
traps, coordinated groups driving megafauna into pits, spears flying in synchronized arcs. Zelvar's crest dimmed. The professor murmured, "This is not predation. This is warfare." Ethan looked at him. That was just practice. The room went dead quiet. "Because," Ethan continued, "once you learn to cooperate, once you pass knowledge forward, evolution stops being random." He let that hang. "You start designing your survival." A chitin-armored student raised a trembling limb. "But your world," they said, "is filled with predators, diseases, natural disasters. How did you endure all of it?" Ethan's expression darkened, not with fear, with recognition. "We didn't," he said, "not individually." The hologram shifted again. Plagues, floods, cities burning, humans pulling each other from rubble, standing in lines to share food during famine. "We lost millions," Ethan said quietly, "again and again." Zelvar watched the footage, something like dread creeping into his posture. "Yet you persisted." "Yes," Ethan replied, "because every time something tried to wipe us out, we adapted faster." The professor finally asked the question no one else dared to ask. "And if your species is the apex predator," Zelvar said, "what happens when you encounter something stronger?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "We don't run." The final hologram flickered on. Alien terrain, unknown stars, human structures rising anyway. "We escalate." The Academy's systems flagged the footage as classified, military application, and suddenly the lecture was no longer theoretical. The word classified pulsed in the air like a warning heartbeat. Professor Zelvar's mandibles tightened. "That footage," he said sharply, "is restricted. How does a first-year human cadet have access to it?" Ethan exhaled slowly. "Because, sir, it's not military." A ripple of disbelief spread. "It's civilian," Ethan added. "Historical record." Zelvar recoiled a fraction. "Impossible." The hologram shifted again, this time showing human colonists on a world with crimson skies and gravity readings flashing in the lethal range. Atmospheric toxicity alarms blared. Local megafauna prowled at the edges of the frame. "These settlers were warned not to land," Ethan said. "The planet was deemed non-viable, too hostile, too unpredictable." A spined student whispered, "Then why?" "Because it was there," Ethan finished. The footage accelerated. Shelters built in storms that shredded steel, crops engineered in weeks, not decades, humans reinforcing structures after the first quake, not before. Zelvar's voice was quiet now. "You adapt in real time." Ethan nodded. "Failure teaches fast." The professor studied the human carefully. "Your species treats catastrophe as instruction." "That's one way to put it," Ethan replied. The feed paused on a final image, children playing beneath reinforced domes while predators stalked uselessly outside. Apex life, contained. "You call yourselves predators," Zelvar said slowly, "yet this behavior resembles persistence, not dominance." Ethan tilted his head. "Predators remove threats permanently." The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. A senior student arose abruptly. "If humans are apex predators," they demanded, "why hide among us? Why attend an academy meant to study dangerous species?" Every eye turned to Ethan. He didn't sit down. "Because," he said, "because we don't want to be alone at the top." The words unsettled more than any threat. "Earth taught us something," Ethan continued. "Being the apex doesn't make you safe, it makes you responsible." Zelvar narrowed his eyes. "Responsible for what?" "For everything beneath you." The professor hesitated. That wasn't doctrine, that wasn't predator logic. Ethan took a step forward. "If we ever stop caring," he said quietly, "that's when we become the thing you should fear." The Academy lights flickered, systems recalibrating risk models yet again. A chime sounded. "Alert! Death World Species! Re-evaluation pending." Zelvar straightened, regaining some authority. "This lecture," he said, "has deviated far enough." He gestured toward Ethan. "One final question, human." The hall held its breath. "If your kind is capable of such adaptation, such escalation," Zelvar leaned forward, "what happens when humanity decides we are the threat?" Ethan didn't smile. He didn't boast. He answered with brutal honesty. "Then," he said, "we'll try talking first." A pause. "And if that fails," the human's eyes hardened, "we'll do what apex predators have always done." The light dimmed, and no one in the room doubted what he meant.
No one spoke after that. Not because they were afraid to challenge Ethan, but because, instinctively, they knew better. Professor Zelvar broke the silence at last. "This academy exists," he said carefully, "to prevent misunderstandings between species, to ensure cooperation." Ethan nodded. "That's why I'm here." A student with crystalline skin leaned forward. "Then answer this," they said. "If humans are so adaptable, so dangerous, why have we never seen you dominate the galaxy?" Ethan smiled, not proudly, tiredly. "Because domination is expensive," he replied. The hologram flickered to life again, this time showing Earth's orbital history. Satellites, stations, wreckage drifting silently through space. "Every time we pushed too fast," Ethan said, "something broke. Wars, collapses, near extinctions of our own making." Zelvar watched the debris field spin. Self-inflicted catastrophe. "Yes," Ethan agreed. "Turns out we're just as dangerous to ourselves." The room absorbed that in uneasy quiet. "So we learned restraint, not because we had to, but because we survived long enough to realize power without control destroys the wielder first." A senior predator species student scoffed weakly. "That sounds like weakness." Ethan met their eyes. "It's not." He gestured to the stars beyond the Academy's viewport. "It's experience." The professor folded his limbs slowly. "Your species teaches apex predators to hold back. We teach them to choose," Ethan corrected. Another hologram appeared, human diplomats standing unarmed before towering alien warforms. Trade agreements, shared research, joint colonies. "Most of the time," Ethan said, "that's enough." Zelvar's voice dropped. "And when it isn't?" The hologram changed. This time, the footage didn't last long. A human fleet, outnumbered, outgunned. Then the tactics began. False retreats, weaponized debris, precision strikes on logistics instead of ships. The enemy fleet collapsed without understanding how. Engagement outcome, victory, minimal force. Ethan lowered his hand. "We don't conquer," he said. "We end conflicts." The crystalline student whispered, "You make war look controlled." Ethan's jaw tightened. "It isn't." He looked around the hall, meeting every gaze. "That's why we avoid it." Professor Zelvar straightened fully now, something like grim respect in his posture. "Then this lesson," he said, "has been incomplete." He turned to the class. "You have studied apex predators as forces of nature. You have overlooked the most dangerous variable of all." His gaze returned to Ethan. "Choice." A soft tone chimed again from the Academy's systems. Humanity, status, conditional ally,
potential extinction-level threat. Ethan sat down at last, and for the first time since the lecture began, no one looked at him as prey or predator. They looked at him as a decision waiting to be made.
The lecture ended early. Not officially, but no one was learning the way they had before. Students filed out in uneasy silence, giving Ethan a wide berth, some out of fear, some out of respect, a few out of something more dangerous, curiosity. Professor Zelvar remained behind. "Human," the instructor said once the hall was empty, "you disrupted a controlled educational environment." Ethan winced. "Sorry, sir." Zelvar studied him for a long moment. "Do not apologize. Answer instead." The doors sealed shut. "Was everything you showed intentional?" Ethan hesitated. That was answer enough. "Yes," he admitted, "mostly." The professor's crest dimmed. "You anticipated this conversation." "We train for it. First contact rarely goes the way the textbooks say." Zelvar turned to the darkened hologram projector. "You framed your species as restrained, responsible." "We try to be. And yet," the professor said quietly, "every example you provided demonstrates overwhelming escalation once patience ends." Ethan didn't argue, because patience does end. Silence stretched again, thicker this time. Zelvar finally spoke. "There is a closed session tonight, senior faculty only. Your species classification will be debated." Ethan's shoulders stiffened. "That's fast," he said. "You accelerated it," Zelvar replied. "Not an accusation, a fact." Ethan nodded. "Then I should be there." The professor's eyes narrowed. "That was not an invitation." Ethan met his gaze. "It should be." Another pause. Zelvar exhaled slowly. "Human audacity is consistent." The instructor tapped a console. A soft chime echoed. "Very well," Zelvar said. "You will attend as an observer." Ethan allowed himself a small breath of relief. "But understand this," Zelvar continued. "Some faculty believe your kind should be isolated, contained. Others believe alliance is the only rational option." Ethan's voice was steady. "And the rest?" "Fear," the professor admitted. Ethan nodded. "That's familiar." As Ethan turned to leave, Zelvar added, "One more thing." "Yes, sir." "If humanity is so careful, why send a student instead of a diplomat?" Ethan paused at the door. "Because," he said, "students are honest." The door slid open. "And because," Ethan added without turning around, "if things go badly, you can expel us." Zelvar watched him leave, the weight of that statement settling heavily. Across the academy, encrypted messages began to circulate, risk assessments updated, defense protocols quietly dusted off. Tonight, humanity would be discussed not as a theory, but as a variable. And variables had a habit of changing everything. The chamber beneath the academy was older than the station itself. No windows, no audience tiers, just a circular table of living metal, surrounded by beings who represented the most dangerous minds in known space. This was where classifications became consequences. Ethan stood at the threshold, hands visible, posture relaxed but alert. "Observer status only," Zelvar reminded him. Ethan nodded. Understood. The doors sealed with a sound that felt permanent.
A towering arthropoid spoke first. "We have reviewed the lecture footage." A luminous avian added, "and the historical data." A third voice, cold, synthetic, cut in. "Conclusion: humanity presents an unacceptable escalation risk." Ethan remained silent. "Death world species already require monitoring," the synthetic continued. "This one weaponizes adaptation itself." Zelvar folded his limbs. "Counterpoint: humanity has demonstrated restraint exceeding baseline predictions." A murmur followed. The arthropoid clicked. "Restraint is temporary." Ethan finally spoke. "So is fear." Every gaze snapped to him. Zelvar raised a limb. "He may answer if addressed." The synthetic paused. "Human, why should your species be trusted?" Ethan considered the question. "Because," he said slowly, "you already trust worse." A ripple of agitation moved through the council. "You trade with species that consume entire biospheres. You ally with empires built on conquest. The difference is they don't care." The avian tilted its head. "And humans do?" "We argue about it constantly. We protest, we regulate, we mess up, then we fix it." The arthropoid hissed. "That is not reassurance." "No," Ethan agreed. "It's accountability." Silence fell again. The synthetic voice returned. "If humanity's restraint fails, damage would be catastrophic." Ethan nodded. "Yes." That answer unsettled them more than denial ever could. "So why take the risk?" the avian asked. Ethan looked around the room. "Because you don't need another predator." He took a breath. "You need someone who knows how to stop one." The words lingered. Zelvar felt something shift, not in the data, but in the room itself. The synthetic finally spoke. "Proposal: conditional integration, shared oversight, immediate sanctions upon violation." The arthropoid hesitated. "You would give them access?" "Limited, but monitored." All eyes turned to Ethan. "Do you accept these terms?" Zelvar asked. Ethan didn't answer immediately. "May I add one condition?" he asked. The council stilled. "Speak," the avian said. "If you ever decide humanity is too dangerous," Ethan said calmly, "don't try to erase us quietly." A chill passed through the chamber. "Do it openly," he continued, "together, with reason." The synthetic processed this for several long seconds. "Agreed." The chamber chimed. "Status update. Humanity. Probationary apex class." Ethan exhaled. But deep beneath the academy, something else stirred. A realization. They hadn't just classified humanity. They had invited it closer.
The news didn't spread publicly. It leaked. Quietly, carefully, the way dangerous truths always do. Across the academy, professors adjusted syllabi. Security protocols updated without announcement. Entire courses on apex behavior were rewritten overnight. One line changed everything. Case study. Humans. Ongoing. Ethan felt it in the way doors opened a half-second faster, in the way conversation stopped when he passed. Not hostility, calculation. Professor Zelvar walked beside him through a transparent corridor overlooking the stars. "You've unsettled the institution," the professor said. Ethan shrugged. "Wasn't my goal." "Nevertheless," Zelvar replied, "you have reframed the concept of dominance." They stopped at a viewport. "Tell me something, human," Zelvar said. "Was the apex predator footage chosen deliberately?" "Yes," Ethan admitted. "Why that one?" Ethan stared out at the stars. "Because it scares us."
Zelvar turned sharply. Even now? Especially now, Ethan said. We remember what happens if we stop being careful. A pause. Your species fears itself, Zelvar observed. Ethan nodded. That's how we survive. An alert chimed softly on Zelvar's console. The professor's crest dimmed. There has been an incident. Ethan tensed. Where? Outer research ring. A non-aligned apex species breached containment. The lights in the corridor shifted to emergency blue. Security footage filled the air, a massive alien predator tearing through reinforced bulkheads, students fleeing, defense drones failing. Zelvar's voice was tight. Faculty response teams are en route, but Ethan was already moving. Human, Zelvar snapped, this is not your responsibility. It is if someone gets hurt. They reached the observation deck. The barrier slammed into a barrier, denting it inward. A technician whispered, "Nothing's stopping it." Ethan studied the creature, its movement, its rhythm. Patterns. He keyed his wrist console. "Patch me into security." Zelvar hesitated, then complied. Ethan spoke calmly into the channel. "Everyone listen. It's not attacking randomly." The beast lunged again. "It's testing, looking for weakness." The barrier buckled. "Then what do we do?" someone shouted. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "We do what we do best," he said. The lights flickered as human tactical protocols unlocked across the station, and for the first time since humanity's classification, the galaxy was about to see why restraint existed. The predator struck again. This time, the barrier failed. Metal screamed as the creature forced its way through, scattering debris and panic in equal measure. Students fled in every direction, instinct overruling training. Ethan didn't move. "Lock down Corridor C," he ordered calmly. "Not fully. Leave a gap." Zelvar stared at him. "You're inviting it in?" "I'm guiding it," Ethan replied. Security hesitated, then complied. The beast surged forward, exactly as Ethan predicted, chasing the path of least resistance. Its massive form scraped the walls, but it kept coming, focused, furious. Ethan watched its gait, counted steps, timed breaths. "Deploy strobe lighting," he said, "irregular pattern." The lights flickered violently. The predator faltered, confused, enraged. Now, acoustic burst, low frequency. A deep pulse rippled through the corridor. The creature roared, disoriented, collapsing to one knee. Zelvar's crest flared in shock. "You're not attacking it." "No, I'm overwhelming its senses." The beast thrashed, but didn't advance. "Tranquilizers won't work," a technician warned. "They don't need to," Ethan replied. "This species relies on momentum. Take that away, it panics." The predator tried to rise, failed. Containment fields snapped back online, stronger now, smarter. Within seconds, the creature lay immobilized, alive, and helpless. Silence fell over the corridor. Zelvar looked at Ethan, not with fear this time, but awe. "You neutralized it without killing it." Ethan exhaled, because killing wasn't necessary. Across the station, alerts downgraded. Injuries minimal. Fatalities 0. The synthetic council voice chimed in over the system. "Human Ethan Cole, explain tactical origin." Ethan answered simply. "Disaster response training, age 12. That landed harder than any weapon. Zelvar closed his eyes briefly. "Today," the professor said, "you could have proven every fear correct." Ethan nodded. I know. Instead, he looked at the subdued predator. Apex predators don't need to prove dominance, he said quietly. They decide when not to use it. The council channels went silent. Then one final message appeared across the Academy network. Humanity's status, re-evaluation complete. Everyone waited. Ethan didn't. He turned to leave, because humans had never waited for permission to protect what mattered.
The announcement arrived an hour later. No alarms, no emergency lights, just a single line of text broadcast to every terminal in the Academy and quietly mirrored across interstellar networks. Humanity, designated apex moderator species. The phrase spread faster than fear ever had. Ethan stood once more in the same lecture hall where it had all begun. The seats were filled again, but the posture was different now. No one leaned back, no one whispered. They listened. Professor Zelvar addressed the room. An apex predator dominates by force, the professor said. An apex moderator dominates outcomes. He turned to Ethan. You may conclude the lesson. Ethan swallowed. This part was harder than confrontation. We're not perfect, he began. We mess up. A lot. A few students shifted, unsure what to do with honesty instead of pride. But on Earth, Ethan continued, every time something tried to wipe us out, we learned, we changed, and eventually we helped each other. He gestured to the stars beyond the viewport. This galaxy is dangerous, full of teeth and claws and things that don't care if you survive. His voice hardened, not with threat, but resolve. We do. Silence followed, not fearful, respectful. If humanity ever becomes what you fear, then you should stop us, Zelvar inclined his head. But until then, Ethan finished, we'll stand between extinction and everyone else. The hologram behind him reactivated one last time. Not a predator, not a battle, a human hand extended. Slowly, deliberately, across the room, a clawed limb reached back. The Academy systems logged the moment. First interspecies apex accord, recorded. Ethan sat down. Class dismissed. But the lesson would echo far beyond the Academy walls, because the galaxy had finally learned the truth. The most dangerous thing humanity ever evolved was the choice to protect.